Welcome to What's Next with Eric Wood, where we will prepare you to make your what's next in life your best yet. Our next guest is Danny Woodhead. Danny is a former 10-year NFL veteran that played for the Jets, Patriots, Chargers, and Ravens. Danny is a dedicated family man, strong in his faith, a businessman, and one heck of a golfer. All things I desire to be in my own life. I can't wait to dig into Danny's story, and we are all going to grow from this conversation. If you haven't already, please rate, review, and subscribe to this podcast wherever you tune in weekly. And also, if you haven't already, go to Amazon and order my new book, Tackle What's Next, and the link to that is in the show notes. Thanks and enjoy. Danny, welcome to the podcast, brother.
Bro, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. I followed you, not really from afar because we played against each other a lot, but I always knew who you were. And which is weird because I think a lot of people are like, you knew who an offensive lineman was? Yes, I do. You guys are the most thankless people, or you guys don't get the credit you deserve in being a running back. All my best friends were like O-linemen. Like they were my people. And so, man, I definitely know what you're about, know what your career was about. And man, kudos to you, brother.
Well, I appreciate that. And ever since I saw the stories this spring around the U.S. Open qualifying and all that, I knew I wanted to get you on the podcast. I can't believe I'm even saying the sentence. We were both just featured in a Golf Digest article.
Yeah, does that give you chills a little? It gives you chills.
It did. I'll be honest. And like, you got in there because you're a plus golfer and about to qualify for U.S. Opens. I got in because I know someone that works at Golf Digest, but that's okay. It's okay. And I don't feel bad about it because one year they did an all NFL golf team and they put Nick Mangold, who was like a 15 cap, as the center over me. And not that I was great at the time. I think I was maybe a 7 or an 8.
You were better than 15.
Right. I'm like, is this a popularity contest? It feels like the Pro Bowl all over again, but it's okay.
You know, it's funny. I read and she's awesome. Been on her show. She's amazing. Kay Adams. I almost retweeted, but I was like, Danny, don't do it. Don't quote tweet this thing. She's like, what football player has the best golf swing? It's like Tom Brady. It's like, we've seen him play.
Right.
We've seen him play. Aaron Rodgers, Pat Mahomes. They're still not what you are, Eric. I mean,
I appreciate that.
I'm just saying, like, you can see on TV, or not even on TV, if you just see someone golfing, you're like, that might be vanity handicap, right? But it's funny because I was like, it made me think of, because I saw that same Golf Digest thing. I mean, guys like me who is undrafted, you use every sort of material, which is so petty, but for like motivation, it's like, oh, you think they're good? It's like, come on. Like, really, we have a guy that's a 5 as the best golfer in the NFL. Right. And these are former players too. It's not like it was just current. It's like, well, maybe just we weren't good enough at football, I guess. Maybe that's why. What is it?
The story. That is the moral of the story there. All right, but let's get into your story a little bit. I had so much fun researching your story. We talked a little bit beforehand. I knew so much about your career, just maybe not all of the backstory. So let's start this way. You break all types of high school records in Nebraska, but you were homeschooled growing up. I just want to know, did you play team sports growing up just with the kids that were in the school local to you?
Yeah, so it's kind of crazy. My dad was a teacher and a coach, elementary teacher and a coach. So like public schools. And my grandpa, he was a administrator in the town. It's a town of 25,000. So everyone knows that. I mean, ish, right? Everyone kind of knows it. It's small enough, especially like the school teachers.
It's like a third of a Bills game.
Yeah. A third of a Bills game. And everyone, I think, questioned when my parents decided to homeschool us. Like, kind of crazy, but people would always be like, why'd they do it? It's like,
yeah, what do they know that we don't?
Yes, exactly. Like, your dad's a teacher, so why does the school system suck, or what is it? But really what happened is they felt like the Lord told them, like, hey, it's time to homeschool them. You need to do that. And they thought it was only going to be for like a year or two. And the next thing you know, all 4 of us kids were homeschooled from kindergarten to 8th grade. So it made things difficult a little in sports once it got to middle school. But other than that, you're playing like city league basketball, city league soccer, city league football. I did for like 3 years, 4th, 5th, and 6th grade, right? So you can't even count that. And then 7th and 8th, I wasn't allowed to play because I wasn't within the middle school. So I didn't play football 7th and 8th grade year.
Wow.
But I was around sports. My dad he coached basketball, he coached girls basketball, coached varsity football, and then middle school track, which I think that was just to stay busy because that's nothing. But he was one of the best coaches I've ever been around, and he also never pushed anything on me. We loved the game because, I mean, that's what Dad did, and I just love sports, and I was gifted at it. But yeah, like I grew up around it, understood it, and man, I just had a love for sports, and it kind of leaked into high school.
Gotcha. So it comes into high school, and then you break all these records.
Yeah.
But you, from what I read, got snubbed by the D1 schools and ended up at Chadron State. And look, I
Yeah.
only had one scholarship offer to college. This comes from a point of relation. I didn't even start on my high school team until my senior year. So
wow.
I got lucky to get that one scholarship offer. Luckily, I played a good enough program. There was always college coaches around, and they were even there to notice me because I wasn't on any of the recruiting rankings. But do you think it's simply your size that people snubbed you?
I think there were a couple things. I'm not going to go into it all, but being 5'8" definitely didn't help. There are a couple other things that I think probably didn't help me. But that's neither here nor there. And yeah, it's kind of crazy because I went to Nebraska camps, and this, in the, gosh, how do I want to say this? I felt like I dominated them. I felt like I was the best player at each camp, and they had guys that they were talking to the whole time. It's like what do I need to do? My team won the tournament, the competition. I can't remember, it was ultimate football or whatever it was. And the play would just be, the quarterback would just say, "Hey, run." And I just run a go route past them because we could score. So every time we just run that. And it felt like I completely dominated the camp 2 years in a row. And then I was like, how is this happening? And Frank Solch calls me, now I name names. He called me, and as I'm going to Chadron's camp, because I left early, they wanted to have me up to the office and talk to me because that's what they do with a lot of the good players. And he goes, "We're just going to let you know that we're not going to offer you a scholarship."
Well, thanks for bringing me in then.
Yeah. So like, what's going on? And he said, "Well, you're too short. We want a 6'3", 230 pounder." Last time I checked, Derrick Henry's the only guy that's like that.
Right.
And even, but at the end of the day, he still needs an offensive line. If he doesn't have an offensive line, it doesn't matter. But yeah, that was a little frustrating for me. It didn't make a lot of sense, but the thing is, I was rooted in my faith, and my parents always said, my mom always said, she goes, like, let's not worry about it. Let's walk through the doors that God keeps open. And unfortunately, Nebraska just slammed it shut. So like, they locked it. They had deadbolts. They had all kinds of stuff. So I couldn't get in. So don't try to walk through a door that you can't get in. And Chadron State, man, my brother was a receiver there. And I knew that if I didn't go D1A, I wasn't going to go D1 AA. I just didn't. I was like, there's no reason to, if I can go to a really good D2 school and I get to play with my best friend. So I ended up choosing Chadron through that.
That's cool. And I'll say this, and we can leave it like this. If you give a scholarship to a 5'8" white running back,
yes, that was probably
and he doesn't work out, it's going to look really bad on you. But if someone has all the measurables, you can say, hey, at least they look the part. And so I'll say it. You didn't have to say it.
Okay. Since you went there was a coach that will not, of Power 5 school, that he was I'm not going to say the position coach because then it's going to just rat him out. But Power 5 school, he was at New England. And for just, you know, how coaches sometimes, well, at least at New England, college coaches would come because Bill Belichick, right?
Right.
And they want to learn whatever he says. I said something to this guy, I don't know, 5 years in now, something like that. And I go, so are you the reason I didn't get a scholarship? This wasn't at Nebraska, but it was a Power 5 school and very successful. And he goes, Danny, I would have loved to offer you a scholarship. He goes, but if I would have went to my AD and said who I was offering, he goes, I would have been fired. And
Wow.
I go, okay. I go, touche. Everything worked out. You're where you're at. I'm where I'm at. So like, hey, you didn't get fired.
Right. And I'm a man of faith too. And I think it all worked out it obviously all worked out exactly the way it should have.
Right.
And those times of adversity, those times where the door's shut, oftentimes God's opening up something else. And if you approach it with the right attitude and run with it, you'll be able to see what's on the other side of that. And you're likely going to be very pleased with it. You go to Chadron State, light the world on fire there. I just want to know this. In today's world, would you have transferred?
Yeah, I mean that would have been a tough deal. I would like to say no. I can't say no though, but I did have, so the head coach that brought me into Chadron ended up resigning and being the AD at Chadron. If my brother wasn't there, I was thinking about transferring. Just because I was like, he's the reason I went there, right? Yeah. And not that the other coaches were bad. It's just like he was like one of the main reasons I went there outside of my brother. And yeah, I would say no. But the difference is back then, and even I had to think about it, which was fine because I played as a true freshman. You lost, or you had to have a redshirt year, basically.
Right.
You know, because you transfer, you sit out a year, then you play again. It probably would have been hard not to, but man, and I don't hold grudges. But there was a lot of me when I was at Chadron because being in Nebraska still, it was very well known who I was and what I was doing. I wanted everything, like I wanted Nebraska to pay. Right. Yeah. So like, I don't know if it would have been hard also to be like, oh, you guys passed on me. Oh, here I am. I'm going to come help you guys. So I don't know. And that sounds like I have a vengeance, and I really don't, but it's like, hey, the other thing, the reason I went to Chadron is I always told me and my parents would talk, and it's like, I want to go somewhere that truly wants me. Some people are like, why didn't you walk on? Well, first of all, because I know they'll never get an opportunity, even if they're 10 times better than them. Like, I know that I'm not a moron. I understand the business, and I'm not mad at the business, but I understand the business. Same with the NFL, right? But I wanted to go to a place that truly wanted me and wanted me for who I was and for the talents that I had. So I don't know. That's kind of a long answer. So I don't even know.
Right. Yeah. It'd be tough to say what you would have done in that situation, but the rules now make it much easier. So
yes,
that's part of the reason that I asked. Okay. So you transitioned to the NFL. I love asking guys this. What would you say was the hardest part about transitioning into the NFL? And if you could go back and give yourself any piece of advice transitioning into the NFL, knowing what you know now, what would you tell yourself?
I don't think we all knew, I mean, including yourself, I'm guessing, how much of a wild ride, a business ride the NFL is. Yeah, you think you're going in and it's like, hey, if I'm the best, I'm going to play. That's not really the truth. At a couple, there's like maybe a handful of organizations now, 5 to 8, that really want to win and really care and don't care about who you are. Like, we're going to try to win. And I guess just to not get moved too much, not that I was, but by the business side of it, and to just keep doing your thing, which I ended up doing. But like, it would have been nice to be forewarned, be like, this is a business and only a business, right?
Right.
And So I think that would have been good to be forewarned, but I think I would have done the same thing I did, man. And that was to control what I can control. Like, I couldn't control that general managers didn't want me because of what I looked like, right? I couldn't control that. I couldn't control that scouts had no interest in me because of what I looked like, where I went, where I'm from. Like, because if we go off of like what most people talk about, like measurables and film, I felt like I was going to be okay, but I knew that that wasn't what it was off of. And that was hard, but I had to go out and do my own thing. And that was make sure you know the playbook, make sure you know the playbook as a running back, but also know every route concept. Because if you get thrown in there in an empty package, which was just kind of starting to come into play a little bit more, it's like, if you know that stuff, it's going to help you. It's really going to help you. And lo and behold, I end up getting brought up on the Jets as a receiver because Brad Smith was hurt, I think, one week, and they needed some special teams, but they also needed a guy that knew the playbook. And fortunately, that I just controlled what I could control.
Yep. And that's life in general. That's for anyone listening
Yeah.
out there. Control what you can control at all times, and that's all you can do. You can always control how prepared you are by knowing the plays. You can
Yeah.
control your attitude, your effort. And coaches always say, all you can control is your attitude and your effort. I'm like, well, you can also control knowing your assignment and your technique and what you're
Yes.
supposed to do and what the defense should be doing based upon this look. There's a lot of other things that you can control on the front end, because once you get on the football field, you're never going to play a perfect game.
No.
And there's so much that happens that's out of your control. And so, man, I love that. I love that answer. You got to play with Tom Brady. I'm a huge fan of Brady's from afar. And I say from afar, kind of like you.
Yeah.
I got to see him 18 times. We did beat him 3 times. Once was straight up in 2011. You were part of that game.
Yep.
Once was Deflate Gate. And the other time you all rested your starters in the second half of a meaningless 17 game. Not that I was counting, but we did get 3 wins. But that being said, is Brady the most disciplined player you ever played with?
I would, if not, he's tied. Because there can still be, now he's obviously the greatest of all time. Like, I have no like argument with that. But yeah, he might be because of what he does off the field too, like the way he eats, the way he takes
Right.
care of his body. So I would say if you add in the off the field stuff, without a doubt, like, and it's not close. He was just intentional on wanting to be the best he could be, right? Like, and he was controlling what he could control. He could control what he put in his body. He could control how much body work he would get done by Alex, his body guy. The guy got his shoulder and arm and lat worked out every day just in order to throw, like every single day. And it was like he had it timed like perfect, you know. He did everything he could to be prepared. Like, he was going into a game prepared. And the thing that he did too, which helps with the staff that he had, but he didn't want anyone on the field unless they knew what they're doing. When I get signed week 2, end of week 2 into week 3, and K Falk gets hurt and I'm kind of given an opportunity, bro, like, I'd be running in and I'd be given the personnel. I'd get in there and he'd be just MFing me. And I'm like, what is going on? Like, I thought you were the greatest of all time. I'm excited to play with you. Now you hate me. What's happening? But what it was is he was making sure, because he controlled what he can control. That was making sure that I was ready if he was in there with him. He wasn't going to let me, the coaches, accidentally play him and him not trust me. Like, if I was in the game, Tom Brady had to trust me. And by doing that, I guess it's by dressing me down the first couple practices I'm there. But after he realized I wasn't like an idiot and I could figure things out, never had a problem again. I mean, besides the random times he'd try to yell at people. But like, he did so many different things, not just on taking care of his body, knowing the playbook, but he was making sure everyone that was in the game with him, he knew that could affect him. So he was making sure those guys were ready too.
Right. That makes sense. What's the offensive line? What's their reaction when Tom Brady gets on him on the sideline? I didn't play for a quarterback that was ever behind center for more than maybe 2.5 years. Maybe that said more about the offensive line than them. But regardless, it wasn't like they were so tenured where they were that comfortable ever doing that. So we never got berated on the sideline like that. What's the offensive line's reaction in New England, or maybe speaking to likely what they feel in Tampa Bay when he does that?
It depends on the line, right? I mean, because it's like, we had some guys is like, we've been around. Sometimes it's like, okay, Tom, you're right. Like, we got to get going. But sometimes it's like, bro, like, we know, well, like they're really good, and you made a couple bad throws. Like, what are we doing? So like, it's funny if you have some tenure, you also have some veteran guys, like, but your whole line's not going to be veteran. Usually, you might have a young guy or two, and maybe they need it. But the veteran guys, like, I remember multiple times, because, man, you couldn't move me by yelling at me. Like, just even like a quarterback. Nothing against Tom, but I was just like, I'd look over at the line sometimes and I'd be like, what are we doing? Like, like, it's like we're out there busting it. And we've actually been playing all right. I think some guys do get moved by that. Some guys don't care. Like, you could have yelled at me all you want. Yelling at me is not going to do anything to me. I have pretty thick skin. If anything, it might make me bow up and be like, all right, let's go, bro. I mean, there was a time Tom berated me on the field. This was in it was my third game. We're playing the Ravens. He throws the trashiest ball to me. Like, it was in the dirt.
Right.
And he's dressing me down. And in my head, I'm like, I'm on national television. It was a terrible throw by you. And he comes up just yelling at me. And I know the cameras are on. And I give him this look. For anyone that's listening, you can't see the look. But I look at him and I just shake my head. And it's funny. From that day on, we never had a problem again.
Gotcha.
Ever. Because, like, I think he respected the, like, no. Hey, bro, like, I'm as competitive as you. If you want to try to outcompete me, go ahead. But you're not gonna.
Yeah.
And you're not going to berate me because I'm in the spot that I'm supposed to be. Maybe throw it at my hands. Don't throw it 2 yards in front of my feet. And, like, I think that in some ways, I'm guessing that he was comfortable with me. Then he's like, okay, this guy I can ride with.
Right.
Not saying everyone else can, but like some of those people he probably needs to yell at. And then there's some, not that I'm so great, but that's my personality of like, no. I've done everything to get ready. I'm going to be at the right spot. Like, don't do that to me. So, like, I think there's a balance, right? There's some people that need it. And then some people are like, Tom, get away from me. Like, I don't need to hear it. I know if I messed up.
And you can psych people out in game that aren't, like, you want them at their sweet spot. So you could potentially mess them up, and maybe he has a good enough relationship or understanding to know who he can and can't do that with to not get them out of it. I know I've played for coaches that had no idea, and I've had to snap back at coaches like, you're tanking this guy right now. Like,
and that happens.
Came in with not a lot of confidence, and now he has absolutely zero confidence, and now he's really going to get worked.
It's so true, because some people can take it and just be like, shut up. Like, I don't need to hear it.
Yeah.
And then there's some people it's like, can be like, all right, let's go. But then there's some people it's like, I already feel like I suck. Now I'm going to suck more because my quarterback doesn't trust me. I don't know what to do. I'm going to panic, and I'm probably going to give up a sack, you know?
Yep. Oh, that's funny. We could fill a whole podcast with that, and we're not going to. We're going back to your story, but I appreciate that insight there. As you transition out of the NFL, what did you find to be the most difficult part of that transition?
Bro, it's kind of crazy. I was fortunate that I walked away on my own.
Mm-hmm.
That I wasn't like, I didn't have to leave. Like, now I felt like I had to, as far as like family wise. I didn't think, like, I didn't want my daughter continuing to switch schools. Like, that was just at the, like, not that it's bad. It's just like, that was at my time. I was just like, no, we're not going to do this anymore. Like, dad's not going to keep going here. And then you're going to go half the school year here, half the school year in Nebraska. Like, I just didn't want to do that anymore. And so I was walking away. Like, it was on my own terms. And it's crazy because I was excited. The next day I looked up Nebraska AM tournaments for golf. So like, I'm juiced going in. And then it's crazy. The next, I don't know how many months, 3 to 6, somewhere in there. It's because it's, man, I don't know if you remember, but it's like kind of cloudy. You're kind of like, what's going on?
Yeah.
I went through a borderline depression, like anxiety, whatever. And it's weird because I didn't want to play. Like, I didn't want to play. So it's not, but let's think about this. Every day, yes, we played for what, 6-7 months. I don't know, whatever it is. And then we had some off-season work. But people are like, yeah, but you had 3.5 months off. Or it's like, I don't remember having a day off, Eric. Like,
Right.
my mind would go, how am I going to get ready? And even on my days off, I was thinking about, like, how could I not get cut? I mean, that's just the mindset I had, being undrafted, being released. Even when I just signed a new contract, I'm like, how do I not get cut in year 2? You know, like,
Right.
how do I not get cut in year 3? So like, even though my identity was not in football, it was a huge part of my life because it took up a lot of time. The 3 to 6 months, I'm back and I'm with my wife every single day, and she's not used to it. And man, we had some trouble just kind of like maneuvering into this new normal that we didn't understand. It's like a whole new life. And it took some time, and we kind of had a nice little discussion, right? I'm sure you guys have had that, right? When you retired, had a couple discussions, and she was like, I thought you were going to be my little helper here. And I'm like, when did I ever look like an elf? I know I'm short. I don't have those ears. I've never really been into green, and I've never made toys. So like, how are you thinking I'm going to be your little helper at home? Like, I didn't get it. So we had a nice little discussion, and we kind of came to the conclusion, like, you know what? Like, she's been doing this for 10 years. She's been running a house for 10 years with 4 little ones, and I haven't been around. Like, I understand this is her domain. My domain was where I was working or at the gym when I was training. And we had to figure out this new normal. She's like, you know what? This sounds crazy, but like, why don't you go golfing? And I was like, is this a trap game right here? Like, like, you want me to go golfing? And we came to this conclusion that, like, during the week, you need to be gone. Like, not every day. Like, my wife and I have an incredible marriage. Like, I'm so thankful for God put her in my life for such a reason. But like, there's some health to it also, that like, you need to be gone, like, for part of the day. As we did that, I really feel like things started to chill out, like my anxiety and stuff. And it was just because I took a strengths finders test. Competition was my number one. If I don't have competition, she goes, if you don't have competition, you compete with me at home, and that's not good.
Mm.
And it's kind of crazy because I really feel like the Lord created golf for me. Like, I say this all the time, is like, that was a game that was created for me because it's like a medicine, and a healthy medicine for our family. Like, I go do that, and then like, I don't need competition. I have competition in golf. I have competition against myself, any tournaments I'm getting ready for, whatever it may be. And that's really what got me through. Obviously, my relationship with Jesus, and then him speaking to my wife, you need a golf. Like, we found this, like, some people think we're crazy. Like, people are like, oh yeah, you golf every day. It's like, yeah, I do. Like, and I love it. And it's because it's something that we needed, because it's something that helped our relationship get even stronger.
Man, I love that. And I appreciate your vulnerability talking about that kind of 3 to 6 months. That's essentially in my book, Tackle What's Next. I started this podcast, What's Next with Eric Wood, as I tried to figure it all out. I didn't walk away on my own terms, but I walked away with a lot of peace. And I didn't,
Yeah.
yes, I had a career ending neck injury, but I didn't need surgery right away. Our son was just born. So there was enough going on. Me and my wife's conversation happened 5 months later. I know it was 5 months later because my career ended January 11th. I found out the news. I'll always remember that because it was my son's birthday. And then Kentucky Derby was the first weekend in May. And we had all these couples coming in for Derby. And all anyone wanted to talk about was the weight loss and me losing weight and not our child. And what's Eric going to do now? And all the attention. Like I'm man enough to admit it. I would have always told you my F's were faith, then family, then football. But once football was taken away, I realized how much of my identity that was.
Yeah.
And then I was trying to find other things to, whether it was affirmations from people or catch attention, but I really just didn't have any competition. I'm exactly there with you. Like I needed to find something to compete at and not competing for attention around my house or whatever it may be. And so my wife was like, man, I'm just frustrated. I'm like, thank you for telling me that because I've been walking around like an anxious mess because I can't wake up and say, I want to be the best center in the NFL. So your mindset was like, how do I not get cut? Which I appreciate that because you were a very good player, but that shows the humility that it takes to also understand that I have to continually get better. My thought process every day was, what do I need to do to be the best center in the NFL? Like, how do I get there? Now, I had peace at times watching TV because I knew I was resting.
Yeah.
Once your career ends, now I can't even watch TV because I'm like, well, now I'm wasting time. There's something I should be doing. I should be helping out around the house, or I should be doing this. I should be serving some way. And so I appreciate your vulnerability there. And I relate to all of that completely. Let's talk a little golf and where life currently has you right now. So I want to know this as a +3, and you say daily you're playing. How often are you practicing and playing?
Yeah. I mean, so in the summer, it's a little different now that it's fall. Like I'm not practicing as much. It's just playing.
Yeah.
Because it's like, man, if I can get a game, I'm going to play the game.
Yeah, I'm playing today. It's a high of 55, but I'm definitely out there today.
Oh, I'm playing today too. I think it's a high of 58. I'm no doubt playing. And the thing is, so like I'll get a game going, but in the summers, it's kind of like I have all these tournaments that I know I'm going to play in. I will play, but like if I'm a little off, I'll go out and hit balls for an hour and a half. And I will also, like, if a tournament's coming up, so like US Open local qualifier, the one that I got through to get to sectionals. Bro, I was playing like trash leading up. Like I was playing terrible. I played a local public track, shot 81. And I was like, wow, what is going on? Like I had no idea what was going on. And I said, all right, you're going to go figure this out. The day before, this is not a joke, the day before the qualifier, I was like, you're going to grind out here until you figure something out. It was like 2.5 to 3 hours. I was out on the range and I was on the putting green. I was like, this is embarrassing. Like, how are you shooting that score? And something just clicked. And I was like, okay, I'm just going to have to go off of that feel and figure it out. And then on at the local qualifier, bro, I didn't play that great. Like that's what's funny is like people are like, oh, that's amazing. I'm like, like you could have been watching me. Like I shot 2 over on the front 9. Like I actually didn't take advantage of some holes that I should have. And I ended up shooting 2 under on the back, should have been 3 or 4. But like I kept it in front of me and I just said, don't mess up. I said, don't mess up. If you keep it around even, I knew that was probably going to get in or at least be in a playoff. And that's what I did. I just kind of kept it around the even number and I got through. But man, like it's so weird. I retired and started playing. I can't remember. I was probably around a 5, right? Somewhere in that range, 5 to 4. And I just was like, there'd be days I felt like I didn't know how to hit a golf club. And people think, or a golf ball with a golf club, people think like you get to the pluses and it's like, gosh, this is just cruise control, like riding a bike. Eric, I have never, like, being I don't know what I'm +3, a little over +3. There's multiple times, even within the last like 3 weeks, where I feel like I'm the worst golfer ever. Like, I don't know how to play the game. Like, what am I doing out here? And it's just, it's not as, your scores aren't as bad. So like the other day I just played terrible and I shot 77. Whereas 77 used to be like, this is sick. Right.
Right.
But now I can go out, and if I find a little something, I can shoot 3 under. Right. And that's the thing, is it's crazy because yes, I practice. You have to play though in order to learn how to score. But like, I practice at least once a week, at least, like where it's just practice, no play. But then there's other times where I'll practice too after I play. But man, it's a game, and this is what I'm learning. You can be as good as you want to. Like, I really believe that. Like, as good as you want to, yeah, okay, we're not going to be Rory, we're not going to be Tiger people, but like, you can be as good as you want to. Like, if you put in the time, and we understand, like, not that we're so great, but because we were in a sport, we understand, like, if you put in time, you can be good at something.
Right.
And I'm learning that in golf too. Like, there's weeks that I'm playing really good. Then there's weeks that like I'm scraping around and shooting 1 or 2 over and playing like pretty terrible. But like, as you keep going and as you practice, as you learn the game, your bad is just better than it was, and you're
Right.
good. Your ceiling's way higher. So like, I don't know. I do practice and I love the game, but man, I feel helpless so often. Like, I feel like there was a couple times this summer I was like, why am I even chasing this? Why am I trying to be good? Because I feel like I have a pool noodle in my hands, like, and I just can't hit it.
That's hilarious. That's hilarious to me. So I was reading some stuff, what Rick Johnson has talked about with your game, and he claims when he took over working with you, or when you got out of the league, you were hitting the ball 240 or 250, and whether he was under exaggerating or not,
that's pretty, I mean, it's pretty fair. I mean, if I got a hold of it, I could get it out there 275. But yes, that's not that far off.
Yeah. So build down the swing, build it back up.
Yeah.
Now really got serious distance, 330 plus and all that.
Yeah.
What would you credit with being the biggest factor in adding that extra distance?
Just my whole movement pattern. Everything that I did was a sway. Like, your whole body would sway and sway back. So then I'd come in super steep. And that's terrible, first of all, with a driver. It's terrible with anything, but I could make it work with my irons because it's just compressing the ball. It still wasn't ideal, but that's how it was. So yes, and I think just my movement, my body's not sore all the time. Like in the same sore way. Like, I still work out hard, but it's a different sore. But it's movement patterns. And yes, can I hit it out there? Sure. But like, I rarely try to anymore. Like, I prefer, like, I'll try to, man, like, you don't need much more than 300 on most holes. So like, sometimes I'm going to just hit a controlled fade and it might get out there 290 to 310. Like, because I'm just trying to bunt it around the course. That's something that I've learned. Like, yes, do I have a gear I can go into? Yes. But I'm really not going into that gear all the time. If it's like, I don't know, 580 to 600 par 5, and I want to get there in 2, sure, then I might lean into one a little, right? But like, I don't lean into them very often. I just don't, because
it just adds the risk.
Yes. And the thing is, I don't, most holes, and it's putting me into a funny number anyways, because if I hit it 330 in the hole's 415, then I have like a little fill shot. Like, I don't always need those, and
They asked Dustin Johnson how he hits a 60-yard shot, and he said, "I don't."
Yes. Yeah. And he goes, I don't know how to hit that.
Yeah, he said, "Well, I just wouldn't give myself 60."
Yes. So like, that's the thing, is like, I don't want something that's super uncomfortable. Now, if I'm in a game with friends, and obviously there's stakes, right? But like, there might be a few times I'm going to push it. Now, if the hole's 340, I'm blasting driver. If the hole's 350, 360, I'm still blasting driver, because I have basically a chip around the green. Even if it's 30, 40 yards, it's a chip around the green.
Right.
So that's kind of what I'm doing. Like, I only lean into them if I have to. Like, if there's like if there's a par 5 that's deep, even on, like, if it's 530, I'm not leaning into it. I'm going to just hit a nice controlled driver, because then you can hit 4-iron or hybrid it.
Right. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. What's a dream course for you that you haven't played?
I've been very, very fortunate to play some good courses. The next one on my list would probably be Augusta, just because of, it's Augusta. It's where the Masters is. I would really enjoy playing there, but bro, there's so many good courses. Like, I'd love to play like a Philly Cricket Club. I'd love to play Marion. There's so many different courses I'd love to play. I'd love to go to Bandon. That's, anyone can get on there, but Cyprus. There's just, I would love to go to Scotland. Have you been to Scotland?
I haven't. I'm 36. I keep telling my wife I'm going to do that for my 40th.
I would love to go to Scotland. Oh my gosh, that would be something. That'd be a dream to go to, like, play. I'd love to play the old course, but man, I'd love to play some of the not championship courses that are just like local tracks there. I would love to do that.
Yeah. I've heard incredible things. Just going up and down, and you go visit a pub after you're done, go stay in a different hotel, like, most of the way to the next course. And it's just like, you take in like this incredible vacation, and it's the history of golf as well.
Could you imagine going to a local pub, getting fish and chips and a beer? Like,
a buddy of mine came back literally a Guinness drinker after it.
Oh, really?
He just got back. He went in September, and now he's like, I have a new pre-round routine, and he's a good player, low single digit, 2 Guinness. Like, great pre-round routine. We play 3 days a week in the summer. This is going to end well.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, I got a few recurring questions, and I'll get you out here. Do you have a favorite book besides the Bible?
Bro, so I'm not a huge reader, I'll be honest.
What's your favorite podcast?
I'm not even a huge podcast guy. So I will say this. No, my favorite book, but they're like spiritual books, right?
Yeah.
Judah Smith, it's called Jesus Is. It's just an incredible, he does an incredible job, obviously scriptural too, of just kind of, to someone that may not know anything about faith, whatever, Jesus, it just kind of talks about who he is, because I think a lot of times what we've done in all these, I don't want to say man-made religions, but just like, we've depicted Jesus as someone that's like mean and judgy and just condemning. And it's like, that's completely opposite of the gospel. He's the most loving, caring person to ever grace the face of the earth. And so yes, I lean more towards stuff like that, because it's like, that's like what's groundbreaking in my life. As far as podcasts, I'll listen to kind of, I do have some that I'll listen to that I'll laugh at. There's a great podcast For the People. It's a golf podcast with JJ Colleen and John Peterson. They're freaking hilarious.
Good deal. Good deal. Yeah, just real quickly on your point about Jesus. There's times when I'm reading the Bible and I picture Jesus as like a funny, sarcastic too. Like when he says like, "Why are you so dull?" I just crack up. I'm like, that's not him. Like, I don't think he's being a jerk in that situation. I
No.
think he's just like, all right, I got something really good for you. If that's really how you feel, wait till you hear this.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and man, there was one time I was sitting in church and man, I'm sarcastic. I love to have a good time, joke around, make fun of people, because that's my love language, is making fun of people. And and I was sitting in church and almost like, I don't know if I was like kind of feeling guilty about certain things, about like making fun of people, because like that's really the way I show love. If you talk to any of my friends, my brothers, and I felt like the Lord said, "Danny, I think you're funny." And I was like, huh. Like I was just sitting there and I felt like it just kept coming back to me. Like, I think you're funny. And I felt like the Lord was telling me that. It's like, that's the Jesus, that's the God that like I serve. I don't serve the one that's just mad at me or whatever. It's the one that's like, oh, like he says like, you're funny, like, and lives life. And he just would have been the coolest dude to ever hang out with. And on top of that, you get to see the sick miracles that he did, right?
Right. Yeah. How easy would it be to have faith if you were there?
Yeah,
But,
yeah, exactly.
and that's why 11 of 12 disciples were martyred, because they witnessed it.
Yes, every single thing.
Yep. All right. Last one for me. This is what's next with Eric Wood. What's next for Danny Woodhead? What do you got coming down the line in your life?
Man, I'm busy. I got 4 kids, 3 girls and a boy. Man,
What's
I
the
love
age
them.
range?
11 to 5, so 2 years apart.
Nice.
Always at the beginning of the season, pretty much. A couple after Monday night games. Not great planning, but I mean, that's
just missed that training camp, baby.
Yes, well, I had one. I did have one training camp baby, but like it was. I mean, it worked out. It worked out well, but we got busyness with them. I have a podcast myself called Out of Nowhere with Matt Slauson, another 10-year pro offensive lineman. And then I have a small business M&A firm with basically business brokerage with a good buddy of mine called Arise Ventures. And we're trying to help people. Well, I mean, that's what we're doing. I said, trying to help. We're helping people sell businesses and then find buyers for them. And we're trying to do it in a way that's, moral, where we care for people, we care for the buyer and the seller. And yeah, I just feel like that's that. And then also doing things within the church. My wife and I are young adult leaders at our church. And man, I love where I'm at in my life, 37 years old. And I've told people this multiple times. They're like, so like, yeah, when you say like, what are you doing? Whatever. I'm like, man, I have never been so happy to be alive. I really haven't. Everyone talks about politics and things going on in our country. It's like, man, like God chose this time for us to be a part of it. And that's really cool. Like he trusted every single person that's alive during this time to be a part of these generations. And I think it's sick. Like some people are like, oh, everything's the worst. Our world's dying. It's like, no, we get to be a part of it. We get to be a part of what God's doing, in this present time. Like, what a time to be alive.
Man, that's so good. I knew you were going to be a good guest, but honestly, how you wrapped it up right there for a podcast about what's next in your life. Yeah. I feel the exact same way. Part of the reason I've been on this journey is because I hate when people are like, oh, my high school days were the best years of my life, or, I'll never replicate my playing career. I'll never be that successful or happy. And I don't say successful, like monetarily, like that fulfilled. Right. And I'm like, no, me and my wife talk about every year. Like that felt like the best year of our life, and it's new experiences, and it's kids getting older, and it's all these great things we got going. So love how you wrapped it up there. Everyone, check out their podcast. Follow Danny on social media. I'll be cheering for you to go crack that US Open.
Yeah.
Maybe get you a Masters qualification.
Yeah.
as well.
Yes, exactly.
My man, thank you for the time.
Hey, thanks for having me, bro.